Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this postmortem of my Blitz game number 863. I had the white pieces and started off with d4. My opponent went knight f6, and I go c4. And now my opponent plays the unusual move b6. Everything has been very normal up to now. This is kind of an accelerated Queen's Indian. If we back up, I think the normal way to get into the Queen's Indian is to play e6 first and then go with b6. But anyway, Interesting way to play. It doesn't seem to be too bad. And he goes bishop b7 here. The other knight move, knight to f3, was the most popular move on the previous move and also on this move. You can see knight f3 is one of the main ways to play against this setup. Not being afraid of the exchange and a little damage to the pawn structure because you get the bishop pair in exchange. So a decent trade for white. But I was playing differently. I was playing with f3. You can see that is an idea. And white is just trying to go for a big center here and is suffering some weakening on this dark squared diagonal, which we actually see black taking advantage of in the game. So it has pros and cons. I think the best way for black to play here is to immediately strike at the center with d5. And then after this exchange, we get a Grunfeld-like position, it seems, where I push the pawn forward to e4, black takes, and I do have this big center, but black has the option of going after it with e5 and undermining. So anyway, yeah, it's similar to a Grunfeld, but the arrangement of the bishops is different. A Grunfeld bishop would be here on this diagonal, not that diagonal, this diagonal, and he would play with c5. Anyway, with the bishop here, I don't know, you'd make me wonder about playing with f5, trying to break down the center that way. Anyway, it looks like e5 is the main move there, but that's not how my opponent played. My opponent played in this position. After I went f3, he went e6, and we're just out of the book. Although this did complete the Queen's Indian setup, so he probably had this idea in mind all along. It's the pawns on e6 and b6 and the bishop on b7 make up the Queen's Indian. So I get the big pawn in the center, e4, and I'm a little bit better here. But, well, due to some inaccuracies, I don't maintain that advantage. So let's just follow how the game went. Bishop e7, knight to e2, knight to h5. And yeah, here's my first mistake. I thought knight to g3 would be an interesting move, putting immediate pressure on this knight. But he replied with bishop h4. That's a good move. And it's just, so my move doesn't really accomplish very much. In fact, it leads me into a little bit of trouble. Well, it's not trouble exactly. It's pretty much still an even position, but my pieces are a bit awkwardly placed. So I should just do a normal development like bishop e3. Then bishop can always drop down to this square to defend the diagonal. I thought, yeah, I was putting pressure. My idea was to put pressure on this knight and call into question his knight h4 idea. And if he takes, I would take back with a pawn and get pressure on the open h-file, so I wasn't afraid of that. But he has this pin, and so now I need to defend my knight here. And so it's probably an even game at this point. I went, oh, he went knight c6 here, just continuing developing. Actually, the chess engine says the best way for black to exploit this awkwardness of my pieces is to play with d5. Play with d5, either immediately or after castling, and just try and open up things while my pieces are a bit weirdly placed. I mean, my bishop is blocked in by the knights, and that's what black should do to exploit that. Instead, he just did normal development, so it's not a bad move, but it's missing a chance to get the most out of the position. And so I have an okay position here. In fact, after I get my pieces out, I think it starts to improve, and white is better again because I have more space in the center. Let's see, he goes queen e7, and I drop my bishop back to f2. This also is a slight mistake. You know, I'm good, but he does have this disruptive check here, and I didn't do anything about it. The chess engine is definitely recommending I should play queen to d2 right away. Yeah, I wasn't really thinking about that. I was thinking more about unpinning over here and unraveling my pieces, but that check is kind of annoying. Let's see, he took first, and then he threw in the check. and I have to block with queen d2. I didn't see any other move there. And now he should just castle here. This is a recommended line. He could castle. I could take. Takes back, and I can play king d2. That's my way of unraveling. You know, my king is guarding these entry squares so the knight can't hop in here. It was threatening the fork on c2. And so this position, let's see, I have the bishop pair. This actually is a slight edge for white, maybe. But anyway, that was best play for black at that point. Instead, he backed off with queen to a4. Now the chess engine starts to give white a pretty big advantage, and we see some of the reasons for it in the game. I have easy development, and I gain more tempos of development by kicking his pieces around, and I maintain a big center here. So this is all good for me, although I do blunder in a move or two. Let's see, bishop d3, he goes knight b4. I drop the bishop back. He castled queenside. That's a mistake too. He should castle kingside. It's just too dangerous, and we see it in the game for him to castle queenside in this position. My pawns are just ready to push forward and open up lines against his king. I'm going to get castled comfortably on the king side, and all my pieces are going to be trained on his queen side very quickly. So so this is not working out for black. Let's see. I kick the knight back. And then I play bishop c2 to kick the queen. So this is my blunder. The other moves were kind of slight mistakes. This is a real blunder because I didn't notice that he could have just taken the pawn. Now, oddly enough, this position is still okay for white. So I have compensation for the pawn, basically, because I get open lines and I get to build up pressure against his king. And I also have the bishop pair. So still a playable position for white, but there was no need to allow that. He really was in much worse shape here. If I just played, instead of bishop c2, say b4, that shields the c-pawn, maybe knight to e7 and castle, and then just continue on. The chess engine, even though the material is even, the chess engine is giving white an advantage of between +1 and +2, just because of the space and the coming attack against black's king. So anyway, that's how I should have played. I went bishop c2, and he didn't take the pawn. He dropped his queen back to a6. And so now I played queen c3, defending the pawn. Plays knight a5, piling up on it, and I go bishop to d3. So I'm just holding on to that pawn. And I also get some more tempo moves because I'll get to kick that knight around. So yeah, black is a bit, his pieces are just awkwardly placed on the queen side now. So the shoe is on the other foot. The game started off with my pieces being awkwardly placed, and now his pieces are awkwardly placed. So I thought he had to go knight to b7 here, but actually it turns out that there is a tactic here. So that my move b6, which I thought was just winning a piece, doesn't really win a piece. And instead of my move b5 rather, instead of b5, the chess engine is recommending that I just castle and then play c5 and just open up lines against this king that way. So what is the trick? You might want to think about this. This is a little tactical quiz. There's another one coming up at the end, but this is a nice one. So after I play b5, forking those two pieces, how can black escape from the fork? Okay, pause the video if you want time to think about it. I'm going to give the answer away now. I did play b5, and he moved his queen here, just getting it out of trouble, I guess. But if he had moved his queen to a5, my queen is unprotected. So this move is a tempo move. And if I take his queen, he takes back with the knight, so the knight gets out of trouble. If I take his knight, he takes my queen. If I defend the queen, then he has time to move his knight away. So, you know, there's still an advantage to white in this position, but it wasn't winning a piece type of advantage. It was just a you know, a typical edge where I have a better position and I probably will go on to win anyway, but it's a lot easier to win when you're a piece up. Anyway, so queen a4, let me stay a piece up here, or become a piece up. And so he takes back, he gets a pawn for it, but this is yeah, it's all good for me. So let's just go through this. He tries to get some counterplay on the king side, and I just line my pieces up for an approach. Oh yeah, that's right. I wanted to bring this rook over to chase his queen away. Just lining my pieces up on the king side here. He goes h5. I was a little bit worried about whether he could get some counterplay here. Let's see. I went rook b4 first, chasing his queen back, and then I went with not d5. I went with c5, trying to open up lines against his king. He went queen b7. I took here. Let's see, took back with the a-pawn, so trying to keep things as closed as possible. I start pushing on with the a-pawn, and he went with g4 here. And now I went with f4, keeping things closed. The chess engine says I should really just push on with a5 right away, which I eventually do, but I took some time out here to secure the my king safety by keeping lines closed over here, although he did find ways to open things up a bit. He traded here, played h4, kicking my bishop back. Let's see, I went all the way back to e1 because I didn't want to get kicked again. And he went h3, so I want to keep it closed. And then he went f5. At this point, I'd sort of had enough of responding to his moves, and I pushed on with a5, which the chess engine rates as the best move there. So that was the correct choice. I realized when he takes here, I'm just going to give that pawn up, and it's a little bit slow for him. He has to make another move here to open up these lines, and that gives me a chance to open up these lines against his king. So he parks his bishop here, but now it's my move, and here's your second chance for a tactical quiz. What's the quickest way to finish the game in this position? Okay, pause the video if you want time to think about it. I'm going to give the answer away now. The quickest win here is rook to a1, check. So the king has nowhere to run to, and if you take, then it's a mate. So that's the fastest win. There was actually a mate in two. I saw another way to win, which just wins by force of material. I take here with check. This is forced. He has to take back. Then I take here. And I'm also threatening to take the rook, so there's no time to save the bishop. I was actually a little bit confused about that during the game, so he had to take here. I get the bishop. So I'm two pieces up now. He played one more move, rook b8, and then decided to resign. This shouldn't be too hard to win, although I do have to worry about my king getting trapped on the back rank. These pawns actually completely blocked my escape, so I may have to play carefully for a few moves to unwind. But anyway, with the two extra pieces in the end game, I should be okay here. Anyway, it was an interesting game. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you again soon. Bye.